Hello friends, welcome back to my book channel. Today we are going to be talking about my April and my May reading wrap up. Now you guys know, the beginning of this year, very slow start. I was not reading very many books at all in January, February, March. However, I'm happy to report that I have been reading a significantly higher quantity of books in April and May. However, unfortunately, as the quantity of books has gone up, it would seem that the quality of books has somewhat gone down. And I don't mean that completely literally, but I definitely had a string of somewhat disappointing reads over the last few months. But with all that said, there have been a few that absolutely just blew me away. And I will say one last thing before we jump into the actual wrap up and talk about the books. I realized that this year, while I haven't read as many books as I normally do, it's been the year of like extremely long books. I've been working my way through the Throne of Glass series and the Magnolia Park series and all these huge series with really, really long books. And so, I don't know, that was kind of cool to see that I am reading longer books because in the past, I think I've been a little bit afraid to do so. So yeah, I think that's all that I have for this intro. Let's jump into April, all the books that I read in April, and then we'll switch over and talk about May. The first book that I read in April was Daisy Hates the Great Undoing by Jessa Hastings. This is the fourth book in the Magnolia Park series, and I absolutely loved this book. In this series, we're following a big group of extremely wealthy London socialites. They're in their early 20s and they just have so much money that they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to do with themselves. But with a lot of money, tends to come a lot of problems. And so in this series, we're focusing on two main couples. We're looking at Magnolia and BJ, and we're looking at Daisy and Christian. Daisy and Christian are the main couple in the Daisy Hates books. And Daisy's brother in this series is a gang lord. And Christian, the love interest in this little series, he is also involved in these criminal activities. I'm going to leave it at that. I do think the less that you know, the better. In these, I absolutely love how focused we are on the characters and the different layers that they have to them. I feel like we got to know Daisy even better in this. We got to know Christian even better. There were scenes in the Magnolia Parks book that comes before this that you only get to see part of the story, but in this book, we're kind of getting to see the other side of everything. Again, this won't make a ton of sense if you haven't read these books, but reading those scenes, kind of knowing that they were coming, was so satisfying. I loved them so much. And I just, my connection to Daisy and to Christian just grew so much. And I love them so much. And I feel myself rambling. I love this book and I'm so terrified to finish this series. So terrified. The next book that I read in April was Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This was a new release in April and I have been looking forward to this book for so long. Quite honestly, ever since I finished Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, I've been counting down the days for this book to come out. And it's interesting. This one had a lot of mixed reviews online. Fortunately, I read this right around when it came out. So I didn't see a ton of online discourse about it before reading it and making up my own opinion on it. But in the story, we are following our two main characters, Samantha and Xavier. Samantha finds a kitten at the beginning of the story and she brings it to the vet because she's like, hey, is this cat okay? Is it healthy? All of that good stuff. And the vet is none other than Xavier. And Xavier is really grumpy. He's really standoffish. But they meet and they kind of get off on the wrong foot. I don't want to say too much because again, I have so much appreciation and admiration for Abby Jimenez meet cutes. She does such a good job introducing our characters, setting up a story, setting up a situation. But as we go through this book, right in the beginning, we start to see pretty quickly that this romance that starts to bloom between Samantha and Xavier is very much right place, wrong time. I always mess that up. They seem so perfect. You want them to be together, but there's things in both of their personal lives that are keeping them separate from each other. I will say Samantha's mom is dealing with a health condition. She has early onset dementia. I do feel like that's really important because that part of the book contributes to what made it so sad for so many people. And I liked this book. I'm honestly still not fully decided on if I want to give it a 3.75 or a 4. Like, I keep going back and forth because there were so many parts of this book that I absolutely loved and I absolutely adored. But I also know that like I have this loyalty to Abby Jimenez that I feel like obligated to give it a really high rating, or because I feel familiar with the writing style and comfortable with it, I just naturally am inclined to rate it really highly. And I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to be like, what is this book actually? Like, if I had never read anything from her before. The things that I honestly really loved about it, partly or the things that I've heard other people dislike about it. And this book, I felt, really broke the natural conventions of a rom-com. We're looking at very complicated, very layered characters who are living very challenging, they're going through very challenging things. Maybe that's the best way to say that. I think a lot of people, as they were reading this book, they were like, this is not funny. This is not a rom-com. This is not sweet and light and happy. This is so sad. For me, I really, really appreciated how realistic Abby Jimenez was being. There are so many times in people's lives when you think things can't get worse, they do get worse. Like, things just go from bad to worse. That's honestly the best way to say it. And so people are like, oh, this is so unbelievable. It is so believable to me. Like, when things just kept getting harder for Samantha, or they kept getting harder for Xavier, I was like, oh my gosh, like, haven't we all experienced times in our own lives like this when things just keep getting harder? Like, I appreciated that so much. It was also really hard to read. All of that said though, the beginning of this book is very insta-lovey. I'm not a huge fan of insta-love, and there were a few like smaller things about the book that I didn't absolutely connect with, just with the way that certain plot lines were handled or the way that things were like wrapped up. Like, I wanted a little bit more time with our characters at the end, which I always feel at the end of Abby Jimenez books, like they wrap up so quickly, and I like a little bit more joy at the end of my books. I really did enjoy this story. I can't decide what to rate it. Maybe I'll put a rating on the screen, maybe I won't, I don't know. But overall, I do recommend it. It is just sad. Then next, I picked up Ready or Not by Cara Bastone, and I am so glad that I read this in the springtime. Honestly though, this is also a perfect little summary read. I had so much fun getting through this story. In this book, we're following Eve, who, you know, she doesn't really break the rules. She has a pretty standard life. She lives in New York. She likes her job. Things are going pretty well. Nothing too crazy, nothing super exciting to report. But then her and her best friend Willa and Willa's brother Shep, the three of them go out. They have kind of a wild, fun night on the town, and bestie Eve has a one-night stand and winds up pregnant. And she, in this book, we're watching her as she navigates this pregnancy, how she tells the father. Throughout the whole book, it goes through the whole 9 months of pregnancy. There's 3 parts of this book, 3 trimesters, and she ends up forming a romantic connection with not the father of her child, but rather her best friend's brother, Shep. And it's interesting, the first time I picked up this book, I actually soft DNF'd it because I was getting so frustrated because I thought the love interest was the father of the child in this book. And I was like, oh my God, why is Eve flirting with Shep's brother when they're not even going to end up together? I was like, this is the worst love triangle I've ever read. And I don't even like love triangles to begin with. And then I realized so late that I must have misheard something about this book. I had the wrong idea going into it. I didn't read the back of the book. So I had to soft DNF it and then completely restart it like a month later. And I ended up enjoying it. I gave it a 3.75. And I honestly think the main reason for that is because I didn't connect emotionally with the characters in the story. I appreciated it. I thought it was great writing and I highly recommend this book. I just didn't feel personally and emotionally invested in the outcomes for everybody. Like, obviously I'm wishing them all the best, but I just didn't really feel it. And I can't exactly put words to why I felt that way, but I did. But still, highly recommend, super fun, great for spring and summer. I mean, look at that cover, look at it. Up next, I read Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This was not only on my May TBR, but it was also my book club book, which worked out so well. Now, before I say anything, I do feel like it's really important to know that I am not a die-hard Hunger Games fan. I know, come at me in the comments if you must, but I just connected to other books in that time period more. Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, Divergent, those were my thing. Hunger Games wasn't my favorite, and that's okay. And I did not have any intention of reading this book. I did not read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'm just a girl and I get FOMO, and I wanted to go to book club and I wanted to read the book. And so I read it. There were a few people in the comments highly recommending that I read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes first. And to you guys, thank you. I just didn't have the time. I do this every time. Also, I still think that both of these books wouldn't have fully landed with me because I don't really remember the Hunger Games that well. I read them when I was 12 and have not thought about them since then. Haven't watched the movies since then. Like, it's just not on my radar. And in this book, this is a prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy. This is Haymitch's story. And as we all know, Haymitch competed in the Hunger Games. He was a part of a quarter quell, which is essentially like the Hunger Games on steroids, where every 25 years, there's like this extra thing that happens to, is it to like honor the Capitol? I don't remember, but there's like an extra element to the games. In Haymitch's quarter quell, there are double the amount of tributes. So instead of one boy and one girl from each district, it's 2 boys and 2 girls from each district. So we watch Haymitch and we know from the Hunger Games that this cannot end well, okay? And that's all true. It's devastating. It's heartbreaking. It was sad, but definitely it's weird. Every time I talk about this book, I'm like, oh, it was an enjoyable read. Like, I enjoyed reading it, and it was so heartbreaking, devastating, painful, sad, tragic, like all of these words, all of these adjectives that I can think of, I would probably want to use them for this book. I ended up giving this book a 3-star. Keep in mind, everyone in my book club, almost everybody gave it like a 4.5 to 5-star because they're diehard Hunger Games fans, and I get it. But for me, I again loved Haymitch, but I didn't love how the book was broken up. Like, we spent so much time leading up to the Hunger Games, a very small amount of time in the Hunger Games, and then a teeny tiny bit of time after the Hunger Games. I didn't love that. I was a little bit bored in the beginning. I was like, when are we going to get to the action? When are we going to get to the good stuff? And just reading, especially as an adult now, like reading about kids killing each other, I was like, this is so messed up. And I completely understand that that's the point. I really do understand that that's the point. It was difficult for me to do. I just did not love it. And I also feel like it was so graphic and so violent. Like, are all of the Hunger Games books like that? Everyone in my book club seemed to agree that this got worse, like it was more violent. And so again, this is still objectively, I can tell that this is an amazing book. I just think I was the wrong audience. So if you like the Hunger Games, if you like YA dystopian, definitely go read this book. I just didn't have the proper base, the proper background knowledge to have the best experience with this story. That's my conclusion. So keep in mind, we've had, if we include the Abby Jimenez book, 3 books in a row now that are in this kind of 3-star range, okay? And in April, you guys already know what's coming. In April, Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry did come out, and you know that on release day, I was at the bookstore buying this book, okay? I was so excited. I was kicking and screaming and all this giddy stuff before I'd even opened this. I was freaking out. I was so excited. Emily Henry is my favorite author. I love this queen so much. And so I was so excited to read this book. However, I couldn't read it right when it came out because I had to finish my book club book. So that is why I didn't finish it until May. But in this story, we are following our 2 main characters, Alice and Hayden. And Alice and Hayden are both writers, they're journalists. They wind up in a small town competing for the job of a lifetime. And that job is to write the biography of an incredibly famous woman. Her name is Margaret Ives. But then she kind of disappeared from the public eye. She became a bit of a recluse and no one really knows what happened to her. Now here she is wanting someone to write her biography. However, she doesn't know if she wants Alice to do it or Hayden. So they end up having this competition that goes on between them to write her story. Hayden is a very renowned, Pulitzer Prize, some kind of literary prize winner for a biography that he's done, while Alice is a little bit more of a novice. And the first thing that I will say is this book was definitely different from anything else that Emily Henry has released. And I give her kudos. Like, I have so much respect for Emily Henry for trying something new. I think it can be so easy as an author to keep doing the things that you know that your readers love, even if there's something else that you want to try that's different and you don't know if it's going to land with the reader base that you already have. And so just right out the gate, I respect Emily Henry so much for trying something different. This book definitely had a huge literary fiction plotline to it, as well as the romance. I will say, I heard a lot of people saying that there was like not a lot of romance in here. I personally felt like there was a very good amount of romance in this book. I did not love the pacing of said romance. I felt like there was not a lot of buildup, and then all of the sudden we had this relationship going on between our two characters, and then it would kind of disappear, and then it would kind of come back again, and I was just getting a lot of whiplash. But I do think there was a lot of romance. I just didn't really feel the buildup. Like, it didn't really feel like the logical flow of a romance. Like, I didn't really feel it. But, you know, I'm not complaining. Like, there was a romance in here. And I think the bottom line for why I wasn't obsessed with this book was I personally felt like Emily Henry was trying to do too many things at once. We had Alice and her whole backstory in her life as a journalist and her family. Then we had Hayden and his whole life and his whole backstory and what he's been through. We had Margaret and the history of Margaret and her life as a celebrity and the family. And then we also have everything that's actually going on in modern day of Alice and Hayden trying to grow a relationship between each other and them competing for this job with Alice. And in only 400 pages, just over 400 pages, I just didn't feel like that was enough time to really explore each of these things. It resulted in me not feeling super connected to Alice, to Hayden, and to Margaret. And it kind of just took away from the whole experience. And I unfortunately felt a little bit bored. I felt a little bit not disappointed. Like, I knew that this was going to be different. And I loved Emily Henry's writing. Like, the quotes in here, her storytelling was absolutely spectacular. Literally feels like a warm hug picking up a book by your favorite author. So unfortunately, I do think this is so sad that this is in my Emily Henry tier ranking. I do believe that this is going to be my least favorite of her books, which is absolutely baffling. For anyone wondering, my official Emily Henry ranking now is Happy Place on top, Beach Read second, Funny Story third, then Book Lovers and People We Meet on Vacation are pretty tied, like they're pretty close, and then on the bottom, Great Big Beautiful Life. Okay, you guys, so that was another 3.75, and I am itching at this point for, a good read. And so throughout the month, I had also been reading The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. This is maybe one of the most famous mystery thriller books to ever exist, perhaps. I say that very boldly and not with a lot of confidence, but I have heard about this book my entire life and never really felt the urge to pick it up, if I'm being completely honest. But then, right around the same time, two of my good friends told me that this was their favorite book and I needed to read it. One of them, she was like, this is my absolute favorite. And another one was like, oh my God, I have this book. You need to borrow it and you need to read it. So I borrowed my friend's copy and I read it. And unfortunately, I didn't love this. I can appreciate how objectively good and what a great piece of literature this is. Stieg Larsson has a big noggin. A lot of brain power went into this book. Before we get too far into my review, real quick, this book follows Harriet Wenger, who is the daughter of one of the wealthiest families in Sweden, and she goes missing. It's on an island, she goes missing, and for 40 years, nobody knows what happened to Harriet. And her grandfather becomes obsessed with solving this mystery, figuring out what happened to her. Did she die? Did she run away? Did she go missing? Literally what happened to Harriet. And he ends up hiring 40 years later. He's getting pretty old. He's I don't want to die before I know what happened to Harriet. And so he hires Mikael Blomqvist, potentially is how you say his name. He's a journalist and he's I will pay you a crap ton of money if you can help me get to the bottom of this mystery. And so that's what ends up happening. Mikael, as well as Lisbeth, is the other woman who ends up working with him on this case. They try to uncover the rest of this Harriet Wenger mystery. There's a whole lot more to it than that. This book is it's like 600 pages. It's really, really long. I feel like that's definitely the longest mystery thriller I've ever read because there's so much more to it than just the mystery. There's a lot of politics going on. There's family dynamics. I feel like my description hasn't even fully scratched the surface of what this book actually is. But all of that said, I think this book is the darkest, not saddest, but one of the darkest books that I have ever read. There are scenes in here that I wish I didn't read. Like, I was having a very difficult time getting through them. Definitely check trigger warnings. I should have. I didn't. I thought I was tough enough because usually I'm pretty good with stuff like that. But in this one, I was not tough enough. I really should have checked trigger warnings first. But I definitely appreciate this book as a work of literature. Wasn't my favorite. I gave it a 3 because objectively it's a good book, but I wasn't the audience for it. So do with that what you will. I will not be continuing this series. Then I ended up picking up The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. And honestly, this was everything that I needed following The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. In this book, we are following the story of Gup, or Gay Uncle Patrick, Gup for short, which I think is really cute, as he takes on the parental role of his niece and nephew. Their mom is in a tragic accident and their dad has some things that he needs to go and figure out and go work through. And so Patrick is given the temporary parental role of his niece and nephew. He lives in Palm Springs. He was once a very famous and well-known celebrity. He's wealthy. He's super fun, very hilarious guy. It's just the sweetest thing ever. Like, there are so many jokes and he's learning how to take care of kids, but the kids are also teaching him so many things about like life and family and opening up and being vulnerable. And I thought it was the sweetest story. I really, really enjoyed reading this. I will say I did listen to a lot of it on audio. I also read it from the physical book, but I would say that a striking majority I listened to on audio. I was smiling, I was laughing, I was excited to listen to it on my walks. I will say the thing that kind of took it down for me, I felt like there were some inconsistencies with the tone of this book. So sometimes, it would be really light and really fun and really happy, and then all of a sudden we would be kind of talking about things that like felt like they weren't in the same book. And I was like, for most of it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the sweetest book. Like, I could read this to, if I had a child, I was like, I could read this to my kid before bed. And then all of a sudden there would be a scene that was like, oh my God, no, I can't. Like, this is for adults. I don't know. It kind of threw me a little bit when it would do that. But again, I am an adult, so it was fine. Like, I really did appreciate this story, and it definitely like warmed my heart and all of that kind of stuff. I think the only other thing is because this book was so light and so sweet, it wasn't super realistic to me because there were so many jokes and Patrick was this larger than life character. I was like, there aren't really people that I've ever met personally that are like Patrick. And so I was like, oh, this wouldn't ever like really happen. I ended up giving it a 3.75. It was exactly what I needed. And yeah, it was really, really sweet. Highly recommend. So I don't know if you guys are counting, but I'm counting at this point. And if we include, say you'll remember me, because again, the jury's still out on what I'm rating that, between a 3.75 and a 4, that is 6 books in a row in the 3-star range, in that range, okay? And that is where I leave you. I am on a string of average reads. Again, good, nothing that's blowing me away, but I did want to mention to you guys my current read because I'm filming this on the 27th. It's early today, but I am traveling. I'm going to Southern California for like 10 days, so I'm gonna be gone. But the book that I'm currently reading, and we are on track for a 5-star or above right now, so I did want to just give you guys some hope, put some hope back into this video before I end it, and let you guys know that I am in the middle, solidly in the middle of Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. This book did get chosen in my May TBR video, and it is the single reason that I haven't read my entire May TBR is because this is the size of 3 books. And so perhaps I could have read the entire May TBR if this book was shorter, but I don't wish it to be shorter. In fact, I wish it was twice this long because I am loving it that much. So just wanted to say that I do think this string of 3-star reads is going to end with this, but I also think it's going to be the cause of my future therapy bills based on how it's going so far. I would love to hear what you guys have read recently, either in May or April and May. What books did you love? What books did you not really like? Because we already talked about all mine, but I think that's going to be it from me this week. If you guys made it all the way to the end of this video, comment down below the little bathing suit emoji. And I think that's going to be it from me. I hope you guys are having a great day and a great reading month. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.